趁着还有半个钟头，我把我一些经验提供给朝阳牧师和所有同工们。OK，早期的时候，我必须，那也有感动做一些为同工筹款的工作。那好几个，你像 Gaby 是头一个。然后朝阳，然后跟着下面有这个Emily，然后有Sally，然后有赵鹏然后有以前李明举等等。那要有果效的话，第一个我要了解他的 donor，OK，所以我就叫每一个同工，你把你的 donor 的名字都寄给我 ，OK， 而且把他的背景都寄给我。那所以我就 collect 所有的donor， 而且 study 他们在做什么 ，OK。那所以有 personal knowledge 给every donor，OK， 就开始为他们祷告。那第二呢，就是那个同工，我就说你每个3个月那个代祷信，有的是2个月，那你把整年的给我 ，OK。那有的时候他就给我1年过去筹款的信，那而且他那个 newsletter 或者祷告每周祷告事项那些item 实际工作的那个 item， 那我也消化它，了解它。那甚至我都要到使者总部的那个 prayer list， 每周要发出去的嘛。那我要 study 每个同工工作的状况，然后等我都消化好以后常常为了一个同工，比方说为了赵鹏 ，OK， 我差不多要花整个礼拜 ，OK， 所以每天为赵鹏写 personal letter，OK。根据每一个 donor 的 background， 我都要写几句话。谢谢你过去2、3年你的 support 我们的赵鹏我传道 ，OK。那我也 appreciate 你在教会的忠心。然后我就开始知道赵鹏是怎么样一个好的同工，跟我们的关系怎么样。那说的这是很 worthwhile 一个神的同工 ，OK。那这样我就 individually 发给每一个 donor，OK， 我有他的 email， 所以呢，那这样的发出去以后都产生果效包括在普渡以前，现在离开我们的那个弟兄两夫妻也给他们写，他们也给他们写很多包括他们侍奉过的教会。OK， 他做 intern 的时候，读神学院的时候，他已经在那里 intern 了。那所以那个神学院我也了解那个他实习的那个教会，所以我也写信给教会，给那个 deacon 或者是负责的牧师，像朝阳，我就 personally 写这个信给他的牧师什么辉刘明辉。那我还因为他奉献很多嘛，那我才叫我们总部一定要请刘明辉来做我们的讲员一方面当然 appreciate 他的侍奉，一方面那他也可以认识我们，我们认识他 ，OK。那所以有些大教会 donation 比较大的，那你都要 pay special attention，OK， 跟他的牧师建立关系。那这样的下来呢，我看见每一个都产生果效，慢慢它的 raise 到有的80%，有的 raise 到100%，那这种情况，那所以，但是我已经跟总部反映了，我说这样的工作，如果我每周为了一个同工花1个礼拜，那我哪里还有时间做别的事情呢？那是否可以 provide 给我一个 assistant， 或者说一个帮手 ，OK？ 那因为你写信给某个发一个 email 都要花时间。那如果我有一个 assistant 的话，我只要写了一些字，那个 assistant 就替我发出去了。那替我发出去必须用我的名字 ，OK？ 因为我是director 嘛 ，campus ministry director， 那所以看信的人看到哦是那个社员事工主任写给我的 personal letter， 他们就 pay attention，OK， 那所以就会产生果效。那所以朝阳他呢目前引播的侍奉太多了 ，OK， 他很多外面的机构，他也参加他们的聚会、祷告会、怎么会又在国内又到韩国开会。那 personally 我看朝阳是没有这个时间的 ，OK， 做这个工作。但是你可以做的就是说，跟着编也好，你必须我们现在团队里面培养出几个 assistant 或者是总部 provide assistant 做这一部分 fundraising 的工作 ，OK， 那跟你合作，就不需要每封信你发出去，那这种 standard work collect 所有 donor 的 information collect 进来，那你自己消化，你自己看，那你的 assistant 也消化。那这一步的工作，是必须做的 ，OK。那所以目前就靠我们自己吧 ，OK。我已经跟总部反映很多次，甚至也反映给 board member 很多次，都没有 respond。换句话说，没有 cooperation，OK。那是这样情况之下之后，在我们自己内部，同工团里面产生这种人才。那才能够帮助募款，所以我把我这些经验告诉各位，那而且呢告诉同工们，这个募款呢，募款是 is work，is real work， 就像你上班一样，是你的 real work， 你不能忙着做施工，没有时间写募款信，没有时间跟你的 donor build relationship。那你已经缺了很大的一环。你看朝阳他，
谢谢李牧师给我分享这些。其实我一直也在为这个事情祷告，我心里也有一些想法了。那个看看怎么能辅助我们的同工们，如果能帮得上的，那就太高兴了，能帮得上。
是啊，你只要出名就可以了。那你现在你现在学做 administrative work， 就学会找到 assistant。OK， 来帮你，因为你这个 director command 是很大一个 job，OK， 肯定一个人没办法做，在那 structure 上面，你要 create 一个 effective 的一个 team， 跟你一起做。你像Trump 做总统，对吧？你看他做多少事情，他有1000个 assistant 在帮他，你知道吗？那所以我朝阳你找几个 assistant 那这样
我们现在那个每2个星期，就是最近一段时间，我们的 regional coordinator 就是一个 team， 所以都会在一起商讨一起计划这样的都是 teamwork。
朝阳牧师李牧师的意思是说，你要有1000个 assistant， 所以你需要有1000个 region。
我也是回应一下，对，我也回应一下李牧师，我是觉得真的是我们需要是一个 get pair 的人去做这些事情。像我们 regional coordinator， 我们已经非常的忙碌，我们本身就有校园事工的事情，也是没有办法 assist 到这一边。我非常赞成李牧师说到了，他是一个有人需要专门去负责这一块，他可能需要 get pair， 他不能够有其他教会的服侍，因为我们
有的那个校园机构，他们专门有人做这个募款的事，但是呢，我们也有我们 F 字不是也没有，但是我自己觉得是这样的，都可以帮助我们的同工，但是真正管用的还是你自己，因为你要跟他 develop relation， 你没有这个 relationship， 你说什么都没用，对不对？你有这个 relationship 以后，我们可以旁边助一下，帮你一下，你就比较容易了。但是没有这个东西，你说什么都不行的。
是的，
说到底还是最重要，就是我们自己跟这个 donor 有这样一种关系。
是
那其他的 on the edge 那样东西，你可能可以帮一下，但是很多情况下，我自己感觉呢，还是需要自己花时间去做这个事儿。你不去花时间的话呢，可能这个就是会
给你们。
我很同意彭牧师的说法，这个 personal contact 是很重要的。我想这是刚刚李牧师提出了，我真的很感恩。真的，李牧师过去我们起初的时候，我们真的不懂得怎么去做。 但是李牧师特的是我们有教会了，有机构了，他写一个信呢，那个 endorsement 是非常重要的。除了我们有个人的关系之外，所以这感谢李牧师，还有李牧师要给我们很大的信心。有时候我们信心不够，他除了给我们写信，还为我们祷告，也鼓励我们，所以真的很宝贵的。所以我真的在这个可以做个见证哦。我们包括筹款买那个校园中心100万美金啊，这个不小的钱。然后包括我们过去那么多年，在我们一点都没有缺乏，虽然这不容易，我们李牧师也给我们很多的鼓励，所以真的个人关系加上有李牧师，所以很同意彭牧师的说法是非常对的。
那个我给Edward Rosa raise fund 的时候，要完全了解他在九龙城浸信会那个关系，其中的 deacon 还有那个牧师，那是我的信是直接写给牧师，还有他们的 deacon。那加拿大那个教会也是这样的 ，OK， 那所以跟他们建立了关系，然后他们那我又称赞他们多么忠心在剑桥，那剑桥又是这么重要的一个地方。
大家来为我们使者校园事工这个事情来祷告。其实我已经在祷告了，也跟同工谈过了这事儿，但是这个疫情来了，我们就没有动。但是我是心里都有点想法了，大家可以为这个想象，我们也许就专门有一个，就是请一个同工来这方面多为我们做一点呀。
那个朝阳尊恩想要分享，所以你可以问他，他说募款的方面，他可以，对。
大家好，我是尊恩，我是怕耽误你们重要的话。对，关于使者的这个机构整体来说怎么募款哈，我有一些想法，可能今天不能够讲很多，但是就是如果你感兴趣的话，我们可以更多交流。对，我自己原来在 NYU 是学非营利事业的管理哈，non-profit marketing 这一块，我就提一点，就是说，其实在美国的第3部门就是 non-profit sector， 绝大多数的资金哈。绝大多数的募款都不是从自己的亲戚朋友，不是从你认识的人来的。对，就是说，其实人们很愿意奉献，在美国的 culture 来说，人们很愿意奉献，贡献能量其实很大，可是人们找不到他觉得值得投资的，就是 social venture， 他值得他支持的项目。所以其实关键不在于你去开发 donor， 而是能够把你自己的项目的特色跟它的重要性和必要性，能够很 consistent 的。用3到5年的时间建立起来，也就是说，其实你建立起你自己的 calling， 其实是更重要的。所以在你 fundraising 之前，第一件事情是很清楚你的 calling 是什么，然后你在这 calling 上面能够持续的成长。那例如说我们的 calling 是做校园事工，我们定义校园是宣教事工，然后你的 calling 如果是本科生或研究生或是海归或是访学，然后呢，让那些想跟你打这个仗，可是不能亲自跟你去打仗的人，他们可以透过你的侍奉去参与一场。
Hey, my friend。
好，我不说了啊，先把时间交给我们讲员，谢谢。
没有，还没有时间，我们还有9分钟。
哦，真的吗？好，那就是说，所以你要能够持续的开发你的 calling。那这里面有很多的话我可以告诉你们，然后我自己募款起来，然后帮使者的培训募款，然后帮我们现在的新的同工带他们募款哈，我们都可以限时在比较短的时间很快就建立起募款的规模哈。那中间很重要就是说你要先经营的 calling， 再来你不是做 fundraising， 是做 friendraising， 就是你先待会美国讲一定会讲这个，就是说其实你是把你的呼召介绍给那些本来就想支持这个呼召的人那其实你是不跟人家博感情的，你好像是在前面打仗，一个国家派了军队出去打仗，后面的公民在后面支持，他们的支持度跟他认不认识这个个人的军人没有直接的关系，而是他认同你这场战争，他认同你的使命呼召，所以中间有很多的小技巧帮助你怎么样让你的 supporter， 首先你可以开发新的 friends，他们认同你的呼召，然后再来就是他们透过你的眼睛去看，透过你的耳朵去听，他们跟着 support 你的过程中间，跟着你一起在这个呼召上面成长，能够带着你的 supporter 一起跟着你成长，是 fundraising 非常重要的 关键。然后再来就是你不要先直接去牧养他们，而是在你的这个呼召上面建立起一个围绕着你呼召的社群。那这个社群他们透过看你的更新，不光是认识你个人，也认识这个呼召本身的很多资讯，所以他们跟着你 support 你的过程中间，他们自己也成长很多。你不要直接想说搞一个小教会去牧养他们，你应该专心在你自己的呼召上面，然后他们在旁边 support。我个人建议每一个校园同工应该花30%的工作时间做 friend raising， 这是非常 rewarding， 它不会浪费你的时间，因为首先你透过互动你会学到很多东西，它会对你的校园志工本身很有帮助。那再来就是在30%的时间，你应该慢慢的目标就是你的 supporter 的 group 大概到200个人左右。我个人是建议一个全职同工有200个关注你的 supporter， 然后定时的去过滤，把一些不 active 的拿掉。然后我就很快的分享一下我的如果可以的话，就是我待会有机会的话，可能就分享一下桌面哈。我们在我们现在新建立的使者云端平台上面，已经为各位的募款想了哈。如果你上我们那个 Polling Center 的话呢，我们第3个有个校园同工的代祷支持的网络哈，你可以在上面开一个你自己的代祷群，然后把你的代祷者的支持名单放到上面，然后上面有一些工具，你可以跟他们改善电子交流的这个服务。然后很重要就是说，你上了使者的云端服务的话哈，别的人也会看到你，就是你就会在整个使者云端网络上面就会跑出来，人家就会知道说哦，在北卡有个陈明，然后有个朝阳什么，就可以全部 showing on the map。那这样子的话，你就有机会去遇到你 potential 的这个新的 supporters。好，我就先讲到这里哈，谢谢。
谢谢。那个把刚刚周恩讲的和李牧师讲的结合起来，可能就比较 balance。这我觉得也是第一步，我们是要把自己的 ministry build up 起来。我从某种意义上来讲，就是说，你这个募款是你的一个实金石，就是如果你能，一般来讲能募到款，说明你的事工做的是还可以的，别人眼睛都是雪亮的，真的不可能说你做事工做得很好，没有人来支持你，很少的，对吧？所以我们如果事工没有花时间去做，你总是想去募款，那是没用的。所以一定还是自己的呼召，事工是先建立起来。但同时呢，也需要别人来帮助，就是通过一些网站啊，或者是其他的关系，帮你那个更多人那个知道，那就好了。我觉得这个 combination。所以如果我们第一部分做到位了，我想神一定会带领的。所以你要到了一个地步，我觉得就是说，我今天请你来我代祷，是实在是给了你一个机会了，因为你跟我一起来代祷，你在我的事工上你有份了，这个他就很愿意来跟你一起，对吧？他觉得跟你在一起很有意思，那个支持你的事工能看到果效。
朝阳，我有一个问题。就是我觉得我在教会里面服侍哈，我服侍弟兄姐妹，让他们看到我做的工，他们是很愿意我的。我们教会团契的基本上弟兄姐妹都在支持我，但是我的教会你也知道，我们教会团契都比较小，就算他们所有人支持我，还是没有达到我 fundraising 的目标。但是别的教会我也不认识他们，而且我也没有服侍到这些教会和团契，那么他们能够支持我呢？我心里有
另外一点就叫到李牧师那一点了哈，我马上到时间了，还几分钟，就是说你有事工在这里了，但是你要有一个平台去能够把你的事工分享给别人，所以我鼓励我们的那个同工啊，我们的校园同工要很注意一点，就是你要能分享，你要能把那个神的道讲出来。随便哪个教会请你去，你能给他讲一篇让他热血沸腾的道，就是这样的。我昨天收到很多那个弟兄姐妹，那个这次来参加退休会的，他说跟你们在一起，我心潮澎湃，因为他来了也听到我们很多见证，他们很兴奋，这就好了。如果有机会，另外一个教会说，哎，你要不来跟我们分享？你抓住这个机会，你一分享，让他一听太有意思了。那当然，这个机会是神给我们的。就是说，我自己刚开始开始募款的时候也是，哪个地方有一个机会跟我去分享，我是高兴的不得了。我说我有机会分享我的事工了，我就很好的准备，就把我的事工给他讲。是这样的，这个机会怎么来，也是别人才知道你才会给你，对吧？不然的话，他也不会叫你去分享一样。 所以说到底呢，还是你要事工起先，你要做的一个事工有一个很特色的，一说到这个，哦，大家知道他在做这个，我知道，别人就会听你分享这方面怎么做的。
朝阳和刚才尊恩都讲的很重要，这样你这个 ministry 这个 calling， 你用2、3年真正去做，就 prove，OK， 你自己也知道，那你写代祷信的时候，你的 donor 也知道，某某同工他是真正在做 ，OK， 那神也祝福他的事工，就人家当看到你真正在做神要你做的事工，那他就很乐意 support 你。OK， 所以比方说赵鹏又是另外一个例子，纽约西各教会的人也都看见他在那里做，也认识他，那很多人认识他，所以我写给他的那些 support 的很多的 response 都是很正面的，很乐意的，来 support 他，所以那现在他等着我。要报告给他们，他回到国内到底做什么？那现在因为有这个visa 的阻隔，他没有回到沈阳 ，OK， 但是我就没有东西可以写给他的donor ，OK， 那你说他还在韩国在等，那不行的，那人家看见 action，OK， 那看见他真正回到沈阳了 ，OK， 那真正看到他要到东北大学了，那个沈阳大学了，哎，看见他给接触了。那照几张相回来，那这个 newsletter 就有效，人家看见他正在做呢 ，OK， 那所以这一点每一个同工都很重要，因为你们有这个 calling 已经 full time， 肯定有这个 calling 进去了，那你进去之后，你就要开始要 collect 你事工的那个好的故事这个你collect 起来，那这个就成为你将来写 newsletter 的那个材料。
Great. Okay, I see Dan joined us online. Dan, you muted yourself?
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, welcome to this last session on this last day. Very important, most important session, maybe training for our staff. Thank you, Dan, for supporting us and for sharing the materials for this training. And I just hand over the time to you now.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ron Haas, our vice.
You are muted.
You're muted, Dan.
I think he need to unmute himself.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chao Yang. I wanted to say that I'm going to turn it over to Ron Haas, the Vice President of the Timothy Group, to provide the presentation for us. We'll be doing it together, and he'll be making the presentation, and I'll be commenting along the way, and then we'll be joining together for a question and answer period at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Chao. Thank you so much for the privilege of encouraging you today, and I hope the things that we share just give you some motivation that this is a really something that you can attain. You can reach 100% support, and you can find more prayer partners and more financial partners. And so we want to just encourage you in your efforts. I want to share my screen with you now, and I have a PowerPoint presentation. So let me try that, see if I can do it. All right. All right, so I'm going to start from the beginning here, but there are lots of resources we're going to give you in this presentation, and there's something we can email you. In fact, we're going to mail you some books as well. So there's some things for you to follow up. So all about raising personal support. Certainly it's a journey, and it'd be wonderful if we had the time to talk to you about your specific situation and how God has provided for you already and some of the current needs you still have. You know, if you're 15% or 50% or 100%. I mean, we all want to get to that goal, and there are some really wonderful steps that you can take to proactively do that. So Scripture, we just love the fact that you are such a Christ-focused ministry. And it means so much to me because that's the frame of reference that we come from. And in Scripture, there's all sorts of verses about fundraising. In fact, every Sunday we send out a fundraising verse of the week. And if you haven't gotten onto that, you can just go to timothygroup.com, and it's just a free little devotional every Sunday. And we talk about the principles in Scripture just to remind us to stay active and to ask. Well, but when it comes to personal support raising, preparation is the key. You just can't jump into it without some thought, without some materials, without a strategy. And so these are the things that we want to help you think through. First of all, as a campus minister, you need your own personal budget. I'm sure you have it, but have you written it down in such a way that you can quickly talk through it and express it to a potential donor? Maybe what you want to do is not only raise personal support, maybe you need to raise ministry support. So there are things that you need to accomplish as a campus. We work with navigators, we work with Campus Crusade, we work especially with the navigators. They have a city group wide approach, and so they have like several different missionaries all clustered together, and they raise money as a group, but then they also raise money as projects. They have other projects they want to accomplish. So maybe you have some things like that. So you're raising your salary in a sense, but you're also raising some project dollars to accomplish maybe some evangelism initiative that you want to take, or maybe some trip that you need to take with several students, or maybe you need to bring some speakers in. I mean, your budget to accomplish your ministry doesn't just have to be your salary. It can be the programming pieces of what you want to accomplish ministry-wise. So I take that into account, because I think sometimes we short ourselves a little bit, and we kind of live very conservative and very thrifty, and that's wonderful, but maybe we need to have a greater vision, because donors give to vision. So here's my idea. So here's your monthly and annual budget. So these are the types of things I'm sure you've already thought through, and you already have that number in your mind, but you need to come up with that number, because we need to know how much we're trying to raise. We need to know what is the donor really is investing in. So these are just a worksheet that you can download. You probably already have something like that already. But here, the ministry side of things. So certainly, as I mentioned before, you've got your salaries, but you have other things, some postage, equipment, your website, travel, whatever you have to do to make your ministry really function well. Include that in your budget. Now, I want to give you a sample. This is a personal case statement from a missionary couple that were going to Guatemala, and they were raising their support. And this, if you can visualize this document, this is a 4-panel document. This is an 8.5 by 11 document, but it's printed on an 11 by 17 big fold-out paper, and this is folded, so it's folded in a booklet. So this is page 1, just an introduction. It's my brochure. It's my personal brochure. Here's page 2. It's talking about my opportunity. It's talking about what I'm going to do. I'm involved in church leadership. I'm involved in healthcare. This was a couple. He was a church planter. She was a nurse. So this is what they're going to do. Page 3 is more about who they are, and a little testimony, and how they got to where they're going, some website stuff. And this is how they're going to respond. They're going to work in ministry, medical, teams, and training. So, and we'll give you this PowerPoint so you can look at it. We can give you that actual document too. And here's the last page. All right, so here's why the budget comes into play. This is their budget, and the budget is for operations, language training, a vehicle, equipment, paperwork, travel. And so this is for a project. It's for personal support and for ministry support. Well, so to accomplish this budget, so this, what they presented was $50,000. They need to raise $50,000, and this is something we'll see more of. It's called a level of gifts or a scale of gifts. So to do this, you would say, well, hey, I got to raise $50,000. I need to find 100 people to give me $500. You know, I mean, we have all sorts of calculations in our head. How do you get to $50,000? Well, here's how I like to get to $50,000. I want one gift of $7,500. You can spread that over every month. I mean, divide it up through the year. I want 2 gifts of $5,000. I want 5 gifts of $2,500. I want 10 gifts of $1,000. I want 15 gifts of $250. So I add all those up, and it's $50,000. So I don't need to find 200 donors. It's great to find 200 donors, but I don't need to find 200 donors that will give $10. I need to find a proportionate number of gifts that will give in these ranges to get to my 50,000. So here I can find it within 30 donors. Now, this is what I'm talking about, the level of gifts. So this is a different look at it. This is a monthly look at it. Some people think by the month, when they buy a car, they think about how much is it going to cost me every month. Some people, when they buy a car, they think by how much is the car. And if it's $25,000, I'll write you a check for $25,000. So it's 2 different mindsets. The previous slide I showed you is the mindset of, I do bigger things. This is a major donor thought. I give $7,500 to accomplish something here. This viewpoint is, I give by the month. So this is how I think. This is how you get to $7,200 a month with this kind of scale. Now, all the way along here, you can ask any questions.
Ron?
Yes.
Ron, let me just insert there while we're talking about the personal case statement.
Yes.
Over the past several months, I've been working with Ike and Jared at the headquarters office, and we have developed, and Dr. Boer actually as well, and we have developed a case statement, a general case statement for AFC, Ambassadors for Christ, and we also, working with Jared, developed a case statement for the Word Project. And although these wouldn't be the same for your personal case statement, these will be good samples and good information for you to pull out of there to develop a case statement of your own. If we were to develop do a campaign with Ambassadors for Christ, we would have a similar campaign case statement. It would have a more extensive chart of gifts and a range of gifts as Ron just shared. But you know, we think that developing a personal case statement is so valuable to your communication with your support team, not only as you meet with them personally, but as you communicate with them through various social media communications, etc. So take advantage of using those samples as you create a personal case statement document of your own. Okay, Ron, thank you.
That's great, Dan. Great ideas. And I like a case statement that has maybe 800 to 1,000 words because I want to show pictures, a map, graphics, and I want some white space, and I want it to be, it's something I'm going to leave behind, but it's something I'm not going to necessarily read to someone word for word. I'm using it as talking points where I'm going to point to something and talk about it, and I'll point to that scale of gifts and say, these are the kinds of gifts I need to make 100% of my personal support. Where do you see yourself fitting in? Anyway, we're going to talk more about this, how to use it once you develop it. So once we prepared our materials, so now we have a story and it's just this document. Certainly you can have videos, you can do email, you can do websites, you can do all Facebook, you can do all sorts of stuff. We're just trying to take it one step at a time. Let's get a case document together so you can tell your story. Now, how do we engage donors? So we look at this process and we call it the 6 R's: research, romance, request, recognize, recruit, and report. So let me explain what these are. Research is really simply, who do you know? Think about all the networks you know, all the relationships you know. In fact, when we think about research, there are networks of people that you have, and you need to do some identification. So I'm looking for somebody that has a stewardship focus, somebody that has a heart for ministry, somebody has a heart for campus ministry, somebody has a heart for evangelism, and I'm looking for relationships. You know, sometimes when we say, who do you know, people jump to, wow, Bill Gates has a lot of money. I know his name, but that's all I know. I'm looking for a tighter circle of prospective donors, people that know and love you, or know someone that you know, or some connection at church, or a family member connection, or a friend connection. That's really the circle that we're trying to do. So you really just need to do some name storming. Sit down, write a list of anybody and everybody you could ever think of and how you knew them. Maybe it's somebody you knew in grade school and you haven't talked to them in a long time. Maybe it's somebody you used to live by. Maybe it's somebody you used to go to church with 2 churches ago. Maybe it's somebody from college. Maybe it's somebody from your church ministry. You know, I mean, it's just one of these thought exercises to do name storming. So identify those prospective donors. One of the things that when we identify donors, we want to think about what's the link, what are they interested in, and what's their ability. So the link, again, it's friendships. It's friend of a friend. It's acquaintance. It's somebody at church. It's these kinds of how do you get to know people. The interest is, do they have a heart for missions? Do they have a heart for, maybe they give, but maybe they give to bricks and mortar and they don't give to missionary support. Some people aren't, some people are like that. Some people say, I'm going to give to my local church and I'm not going to give to individual missionaries. Okay, that's great. Doesn't mean you can't talk to them or can't ask them. It just means you need to be aware of that and approach them in the right way. And the ability, is this person, do they have the ability to give you $100 or could they give you $10,000? So think about that. Now, the second R is romance. And don't let that word throw you off. What it means is cultivating relationship. It's all about becoming friends, not to manipulate them, not in a wrong way. It's just about being friendly and cultivating this relationship. How do you do that? Well, we call it romance because donor relationships are much like a marriage. If some of you are married, and I'm married, Dan's been married for many, many years, and I didn't ask my wife to marry me on my first date. And when I talk about that, there's somebody in the crowd that says, well, I did. It's like, oh my goodness. And she said, yes, oh my goodness. So that's very unusual, right? It takes time and it takes trust and it takes learning more about one another and learning more about likes and dislikes. And is this someone that I can see myself for the rest of my life? Well, a donor relationship is much similar. Is this someone, from a donor's perspective, as they get to meet you, they're saying in their mind, is this somebody that I think is going to do the job? Is this somebody that I think is going to be effective? Can I encourage them if I support them? So they're just thinking about how to build trust. Now, here is a case study from my own personal life. Allison Blunk is a missionary to Croatia. I support Allison monthly. And the reason I support her is that my son is a middle school pastor in Hong Kong. He works at Island Evangelical Community Church in Hong Kong. He went to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. And one day, Jared emailed me and says, hey, my friend Allison is going to Croatia, and she is a quality person. She's going to do a fantastic job. Would you consider supporting her? And I said, that's great. Send me your stuff. So I got on Allison's email, and Allison did a wonderful job of communicating to me, even though she never met me. I've never met Allison personally. We've just talked online and email and text, and she calls me every once in a while. Well, anyway, I got to know Allison through this email, and I just learned her story. In fact, I didn't even know what Joshua Venture was. That's her mission agency. And so I learned about these guys. I said, okay, are these guys, from my perspective, do they have the right theological bent? Is it, and I knew it was because he was from Moody and she is from Moody. So I was cool with all that, but I just didn't know these guys. Well, so Allison did a wonderful job. She would write emails and she would update me monthly. This was even before I supported her. So her emails are very informative. And like even in this one, you can see 73 people have become monthly partners. And then when she would ask, I can't leave until my monthly support reaches 100%. Would you consider being one of my monthly partners? So that's a really soft ask. I mean, that's great. But she would just say, here's where I'm at, 76%. Well, the other thing that Allison did, she would help me track her progress because, many times as missionaries raise support, they have some one-time expenses like travel expenses, setup expenses, whatever, but then it's some ongoing monthly support. Sometimes people like to give to we used to call it outfit and passage. People like that because it's a one and done. Yeah, I'll help you get there, but I'm not going to help you every month, which is fine. I mean, we're going to love everybody and we're going to help them however they want us to get engaged. We love it. But this helped me to see, okay, well, her one-time supporters, she's all full. And so she doesn't need more outfit and travel. She's good. But her monthly support, that's where she really needs some people. So, okay, that's good. Well, Allison also included in her emails, she said, would you pray? And here are some prayer requests going on. And then she was really very skillful in the fact that in her emails, she always has little hyperlinks to help me click on that and see pictures of the team and inform me about who the players are and who's all joining her in this really good effort. So Allison, I love this one because she used her social media in an incredible way. And I hope all of you have a social media platform where you're using your own personal website, if you can, where you're using a blog post, where you're all of these things she gave previous updates. She would email me her update, but then she would post them on her website, so I could go back and I went back and I read all of those things because here I didn't know her at all. I'm just trying to learn about who she is and what she's all about, what makes her tick, why she's so passionate about Croatia. And then it got to the point of she needed another $925. Well, you see that same chart that I just showed you, and it helps you as a donor visualize how you can fit into that team member's team. So I look at that and I say, okay, where do I fit? Could I do 25? Could I do 50, 100? Could I do 200? It helps your donors think about how they can actually plug in and make a tremendous difference for you. So this gets back to, this is under romance. I want to know my donors as well as I can. I want to know their email, their cell phone numbers, their email, their birthday. Now, Allison doesn't know this about me. She knows my son. She knows my cell number and my email address, but we're still getting to know each other, but that doesn't matter. I'm supporting her now. I've supported her for 2 years. So the point is, you don't have to become people's very, very, very best friend. They already have a very best friend, but they want to be a ministry friend with you. And so that's the level of friendship we're trying to get to.
Ron?
Now, yes.
If I could add, before we move on to the request talking about the romance or building relationships,
yes.
A couple of things. Ron mentioned about updating your donors monthly. Again, we want to emphasize the importance of, updating and reaching out to your donors in several different ways on a regular basis. Keeping them informed and involved is so critical to the building relationship process. We're going to make several references to a book called The God Ask by Steve Shadrach. And Ron already made one reference to it with the budget page that he gave you earlier. And as well as in the books that we're going to provide you from the Timothy Group, Major Donor Game Plan, and the book from Ron called Ask for a Fish. But all of those books talk about sharing your vision with your donors. And the same is true when you're building up your personal support team. You need to be sharing your vision. The God Ask actually on chapter 24 of that is 6 questions to share with your support team, which is really critical, and to be able to build up that relationship and give them the information that they really need. They don't need to become your best friend, but you should be able to communicate with them and have a relationship like a good friend, so that their cell phone, their birthday, and those kind of information, so that when you communicate with them, you can ask about how's your family, and have that kind of relationship with them. And that's why we use the word romance to kind of qualify that. But it's really building up that personal relationship. All right, thank you, Ron.
Oh, that's great, Dan. Very good. So now the third R. So I shared with you 6 R's. The third R is request. So here's where it gets more difficult, is that you actually have to ask people, will you support us? Sorry, I moved too far. Will you support me? So in Allison's case, pretty unique case, because she asked her friend, and her friend introduced her to me. And if my son wouldn't have introduced me, I maybe would have supported her, maybe not. I support other missionaries, but not. I mean, Jared was the first one that recommended me, referred me. So it's a lot faster if a good friend recommends you or refers you. So that's one way to find these potential donors. Ask your friends, and then when your friend says, hey, I think Joe could help you, say, well, would you talk to Joe? Would you introduce me to Joe? Could I go out to eat with Joe and have breakfast or something? The point is, if we're going to schedule this time together, you need to send an introductory letter to a prospective donor, even if it's a cold call out of the blue. It's better if it's not a cold call. So I'm thinking, all right, we have Joe that we want to consider as a prospective donor, and our friend Bill introduced us, or he's Joe's friend. I would write a letter, say, hey, Joe, Bill is your friend, Bill is my friend, and Bill said that you have a heart for missions. I'd love to come talk to you about what I'm doing in my campus ministry. So the letter is really straightforward. Share some things about where you're going, what you're doing, and share that you're looking for financial and prayer support. And then share that you'll be calling them. That's the first letter. Then you follow up with a phone call saying, hey, Joe, did you get my letter? And he said, well, I don't think I did. And in my phone call here, I'm just sharing my enthusiasm and excitement about this ministry opportunity. I'm offering a glimpse of the vision that Dan just talked about, and I'm asking for a face-to-face meeting. This is really critical because you don't really want to ask for a gift on the phone. Asking for a gift on the phone is too easy. And it's too easy for them to say, I really can't do anything right now. So really all I want to do in the phone call is ask to schedule a personal meeting. That's the goal of the phone call. All right. So here's a script, and we'll give you this PowerPoint and you can write it down. So I would say, as the campus minister, one of the greatest I have as a missionary is visiting with fellow believers who love the Lord and have a heart for reaching lost. I'd like to visit with you and Cynthia to share details about my campus ministry. I'm asking friends to consider a twofold partnership with me. I need to add more prayer partners and financial partners to my team. Would you be available next Thursday at 2 o'clock for 30 to 40 minutes? That's all it is. Maybe you give them another date as an option, but it's just trying to start the conversation, just trying to be straightforward. You're not couching it in some excuse. You're being just straight up. I want to come talk to you, and I'd love to share, because I think this might be something you might be interested in. All right, so there's that. Now, here's the next problem, is that they may say, can you just send us some information and we'll think and pray about it, right? That's kind of a delay tactic or deny tactic, or I don't know how well you know American college football, but the Heisman Trophy, the guy holding his hand out to push the defender away, they're just stiff arming you, and you know that's a natural response, can be a natural response. So my answer to that is, Billy Mary, this step of faith is so important to me. I feel the best way to share this information is in a face-to-face discussion. I know the summer months are busy. Would it be possible to visit you in your home in the next few weeks? So what we're doing here is we're just being gracious. We're being persistent. We're just nudging them along and letting the Holy Spirit open the door for you. So request. It's all about who. Contacting the right person, right? It's all about the people that align with your mission, your values, the people that have similar background, the similar desire. I mean, people that have a heart for campus work, people that have a heart for working with the Asian community, people that have just love the Lord and want to be your partner because they can't do what you do and you can't do it without their help. So who? Trying to find the right who. This is a spiritual thing as well. I mean, God's going to lead you to the right people, and you need to be in prayer about this. Lord, help me figure out who you want me to call. Once I get there, the conversation is all about them. I mean, I'm there to tell my story, but it's not a sales meeting where I have to open my little book and go through all the things I'm going to do. I mean, you want to do that, but you really want to make this a personal, developing relationship. Ask them about their testimony. Ask them about how they're involved in church. Ask them if they've ever taken a missions trip. Ask them if they've ever gone to a campus ministry. Ask them about your campus, if they know anybody on your campus. Ask them when they trusted Christ. Ask them if their kids have any experience in missions efforts. I mean, we're just trying to get certainly involved in a genuine way. So what's the request? Well, we're talking about personal support and project support. Again, we had a navigators call a few years ago, and the personal support was for the city. And we were trying to raise $150,000, and that covered several different missionary families in the city. And that was great. So we asked this major donor for $150,000, but we also had a project where we were really trying to have some specific evangelist input, and that was going to cost $900,000. And we had a separate case statement for them. We had it all outlined, ready to go. And so we presented this guy both. So we want you to continue supporting the city missionary families but then we also have this great opportunity that we think could make a tremendous difference. Would you consider supporting this as well? And the guy did, and it was great. And so even, you know, so what I'm trying to tell you is, as we move forward in a campaign, we want you to go out and talk to your personal supporters and get to 100%. But we also want you at some point maybe to consider a few of those. Could they help AFC overall, the overall ministry? Maybe you've got a friend that's not going to give you $1 million because you don't need it, but maybe they'll give AFC $1 million for the Word project or for this project or for that project. So it's both and. Request. Where's the right place to make a request? I think it's the kitchen table. In America, that's where people sit down, they write their bills, they have friends over, they talk, they share. It's a great place to show your little case statement, flip it around on the table, and point them through the various items that you want to highlight. Where do you do it? I don't like doing it in a restaurant. I have many times, but in a restaurant, the problem is I'm ready to ask for a gift, and the waitress comes by and says, "Hey, can I fill up your coffee?" Yes, that's fine, but I'm busy now. So they're very kind, but it's like, I want a quiet space. Why will somebody support me? Well, the number one reason somebody says yes is because the right person asked them. So again, it gets back to relationship, and it gets back to cultivating that relationship. So it's important. Now, here's the asking part. So we got a gift proposal. I showed you mine. Here it is again. So now it's this document that I have. It's all, there's 4 pages again. It gets back to the last page right here on the last page. And so I'm going to ask, when I close out my meeting, I'm going to say, will you pray for me and our campus that we could be effective for Christ? Will you pray that I'd be able to reach 100% of my support? Then would you consider a gift, a monthly support, to help me in this effort? So here's a phrase. Would you prayerfully consider becoming my prayer and financial partner for $250 a month? Now, that's a pretty strong ask. Maybe you only feel comfortable asking for $50 a month or $100 a month. It's more about that person's interest, ability, and link, right? We already talked about that. Maybe they're just really incredible and God's blessed them amazingly. Maybe $250 to them is walking around money, right? I mean, for others, $250 might be, you know, a month of hard sacrifice to give. And that's, both donors are, you're going to love them both. And you're going to just be grateful and thankful for anything they can give. But I want you to be bold. I want you to be aggressive in the right way and walk by faith. And just ask God to open the windows of heaven and pour out his blessing. Okay, so they can, if they say yes, wow, awesome. Sign them up. If they say no, so the question is, if somebody says no, how do you interpret a no? I mean, we kind of interpret it like, oh, you don't like me, and we go down a bad trail there. The no might just simply mean not now, because they might have something going on financially. That we all do have things going on financially. We just don't know. Maybe they just lost their job, or maybe they're about ready to get a job, or maybe they're about ready to move, or maybe they just found out they had a health problem. So they might have to pause a decision. So no might mean just simply not now. It might be for not for this amount. So I said $250 and they're thinking $100. Well, that's a great gift. $100 is a great gift. But so then now the no is a negotiating no. And maybe the no is not for this project. Now you're the project, right? But maybe you're going to present them something else. Say, hey, I want to do an online whatever. I want to do a campus video for my particular campus. I want to do, you know, and maybe they think, I don't know, not so sure I want that, but that's fine. All right, so got to interpret the no. And then they might say, maybe. In fact, most of the time they say maybe. Most of the time they say, well, I'd like to think and pray about this. That's great. And so what I always say, I really appreciate that, because this is this is a God thing, and I just want to make sure that I'm in the center of God's will here. And so I want to keep the ball in my court. I want to always be the person that's going to follow up and not let them wait on me. So I will ask, could I call you in a couple weeks? Would that give you enough time to pray about your decision? And people usually say, sure, that'd be fine. Just follow up with me. That'd be great. I just had that. Dan and I just had that. We working on a church campaign together, and we went and asked someone, and I said, I'd like to follow up a couple weeks. He said, that'd be great. Here's my card. Give me a call. So it's a great conversation. Now, in the follow-up, if they've not made a decision yet, I'm going to answer any more questions they might have, because they might be thinking about this and say, hey, what about this and this and this? And what do you guys work with that? You know, there's all sorts of questions that people need to make an informed decision. So you're going to share additional information, and you're going to check on their gift decision to say, how has the Lord led you in regards to supporting my ministry? Be straightforward. Just be honest, and don't be afraid. Just be honest. All right, so that's brings us to, yes.
Okay, before you go on to the recognized, just a couple of things again to emphasize from the request. Number one, Ron shared about asking them about their story. We can't emphasize how important this aspect of the visit is. And the reason for that is that this is really how you get to know your donor. And more importantly, you get to know, well, what is their passion? What is actually their need to give? They'll identify it if they share, they've been on a missions trip or a special project that they've supported at their church or whatever the case might be. This really helps you to identify if they're interested in giving to you on a monthly basis, if they're interested in being a project, if they're interested in a startup. But it really helps you identify their need to give. But also, this is good information for you to be able to add to your donor file, your information on that donor. So then when you follow up with them on a personal basis, or even have an opportunity to visit with them, this is the kind of information that, again, is valuable as you're communicating, as you're building that relationship, as you're following up, and you're becoming, good friends with that particular person. One other thing that we found, and this is something that we found rather as a surprise, but for those individuals, especially those lead donors in your support team that you know very well, what we found is that one of the best ways to be able to communicate with them is, believe it or not, to send them a text and say, when is a good time for me to call? Sometimes that really, especially with a busy person, that really works very well. It has to be someone that you have a good relationship with already, and is probably a major donor and probably a busy person, a businessman, businesswoman. And but sending them a text, when is a good time for me to give you a call? And they'll flip back and say Thursday at 1 o'clock between 2 appointments. And we really found that was really a really effective way. But again, it has to be based on someone that you have a good relationship with. And then finally, with the gift, if Lord willing, when you ask them, they will say yes. Don't hesitate to take the opportunity to say, can I confirm that gift, and can you start the gift this month? Or if it's the end of the month, can you start the gift next month? And get that information. Ask them if they want to be paying by a check or paying by EFT or whatever's most convenient for them, so that it facilitates your follow-up. Now, if they say, I have to think about it, and you're going to get back to them, make sure you do that follow-up. And if they say yes, then and there, try to make that firm up that commitment and that payment arrangement for the gift because it'll really improve the situation in getting their gifts started and getting you to be getting their gifts on a regular basis and starting up their support in a timely way. So just a couple of keys to think about, you know, as you try to maximize that visit time with them or that follow-up time with them. Okay, Ron.
Very good, Dan. Very good insights. And follow-up's key though, right? I mean,
follow-up's the key.
You know, sometimes we have a great meeting and we never talk to them again. In fact, I have a missionary friend of mine is like, man, I love you, man. You got to work on your follow-up because you should be challenging more. I should be doing more than I am, and I'm going to do it anyway. But not everybody's like that. Some people are like, don't ask, and you don't get it, right? All right, so let's talk about the recognize R. That it just simply means saying thank you. Now, this is really key. We can't emphasize this enough. So I've got this great little story. My mom is 90 years old, and a few years ago, somebody from her church wanted to take a mission trip to South America, and so she read his letter and she sent him a check, and she didn't hear about anything. That's it. Didn't hear a thing. Then a year later, he called her up. He says, Mrs. Haas, I want to thank you for your gift for my missions trip. We had a wonderful time, and I want to go to Guatemala this time. And she says, thank you. That's really great. And she did not send a check because thank you letters have an expiration date. You know the little thing on your milk that says best when used by June 1st? Thank yous are just like that. He thanked her, but he thanked her in the same breath that he asked her for another gift. Poor move. And it's too bad for him, but he maybe probably didn't learn his lesson. But we don't want to learn that lesson. We don't want to do that. We want to be gracious. We want to be thankful. You know, there were 10 lepers. Only one came back and said thanks. It's like, don't be the 9. Be the people that are incredibly thankful. A thank you note is wonderful. A thank you gift is great. I got lots of little gifts from people who've, you know, thanked me. And so I put them on my shelf, and your people will too. And that's good because it's a reminder of you. It's a reminder of your ministry. And so it's very positive. So give them something that is meaningful to you, meaningful to them, help them a reminder of that gift. So can't say enough about being thankful. Yes.
Right. Just one other thing. And this is a really important sticking point with me. And I really do believe in the power of adding a personal note to your thank you. A personal handwritten note is, even in this digital age, is so critical. Over 45 years that I've been doing this and working with a number of ministries and supporting a number of ministries and causes, there's only been 2 ministries that have added a personal note to their acknowledgement letter when I've sent them a gift. 2 ministries. And when you put a personal note on there, that indicates to a person that, yes, I'm paying attention to who's on my support team. Yes, I really do appreciate what they're doing. And somebody knows personally, you know, what I'm giving and how I'm giving. And it really makes an impact. And I can't tell you the thousands and thousands and thousands of letters I've added a personal note to. But, you know, there have been notes coming back and saying, you know, you're the only one that sent a personal note, and we really appreciate it. So, you know, again, I can't emphasize more. I shared that with Ike, too, when we were talking, you know, about responding to, you know, major donor letters and acknowledgments on key gifts that come in from an appeal. The personal note is so critical. One other thing I want to mention before Ron continues, we are seeing your questions that you're adding. And at the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer time to address those questions. So keep them coming, keep noting them, keep writing down your questions on your outline, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. Okay, Ron,
Great.
thank you.
Perfect. Nice. Now, the next R is recruit. So really, now that I have someone who's on my team who believes that what I'm involved with is eternally focused and loves it to the point of they're going to pray for me and support me. Now, I need to ask them, will you be a friend raiser? Who do you know? Who do you know that you could introduce to me to help me build my team? And this is great because many of you kind of run out of names after a while. You can name storm, but you kind of run out of names. You get to the point where you need new opportunities. And so I'm asking my donors, my supporters now, can they help me identify more people? And just like Jared with me, Jared supported her, but now you got me involved. So, the same thing happens. So your donors, maybe their mother, grandmother, grandfather, maybe they would support you as well. So think about that. You need to ask your donors to introduce you to your friends. So this sweet lady, we asked her if she would introduce us to her friends. And she said, you mean I'm a little old lady with money and you want me to talk to other little old ladies with money? And we said, yes, that's what we want. And she says, I can do that. And so the thing about it is when you find something like this, they're going to be a champion for you. And that's what you need. You need to find champions, people who are passionate about what you're doing and why what you're doing is so critical. Find some champions, some advocates for you. So one of the things an advocate can do is they can host an event in their home. So if you think about this, we would encourage you to encourage them to invite their friends over to their house so they can meet you. And this meeting is just a living room gathering. It's a presentation. I'm not really asking for a gift that night. I'm asking for the opportunity to follow up because I'd like to go meet all these people in person. Let's just say you have 4 couples in this room and you share your story and you have pie and coffee and you just get to know people. This meeting is not about your presentation or about your brochure or about any video. You can show all that. This meeting is about making friends. So make some friends in this kind of meeting, then follow up later. Reporting, now this is an important step in these 6 R's, is that I need to finally touch base again and tell my donor how their gift has been used, what's been the eternal impact. I need to share stories about how their gift is making a difference. Now, you're reporting in a sense every month when you do your email newsletter or your paper newsletter. That's your report. But this is also for your key donors. When you think about their top 10 donors, you need to maybe spend some time with them and report to them personally. If you had somebody who gave you $5,000, you need to pay attention to that because there may be more opportunities to support you from them. So the more you report, the more they know, the more they get excited, the more potential they have for continued gifts. So we want to strengthen these relationships now that we have them, and we're going to do all these things that we've already talked about. And we need to realize that this is an ongoing process. You're never done. You keep going, and be not weary in well-doing. Dan, why don't you talk about some time management?
Just one thing before we go on to time management. It has to do with again, telling stories. And again, this is another thing that Ike and I have talked about in relationship to the appeals that are going out. And the appeals and your contacts with your support team should share stories about how your people have been won to Christ, how your gift, how your work is making a difference in reaching people with the gospel. And that is just so important, because that really tells people that they're making an eternal investment in the Lord's work. And so we want to encourage you to use stories. You know, Jesus, when he taught and preached, he used parables, stories, and the parable is defined as an earthly story with a heavenly message. And so with the stories are such a valuable communication tool in letting people know how God is blessing your work and how their investment is really making an impact on the lives of the people that you're touching. So we just want to keep that reminder for you as you go forward. Okay, Ron.
Okay, why don't you talk about the rest, a few of this here.
Okay, in the area of time management, again, this is an area that we could really spend a whole another training session on, dealing with your time management. And but we just wanted to make a few quick comments here, about time management, because people ask, well, how much time should I really spend, or do I need to spend on my fundraising, on my communication, on my stewardship, as part of my whole ministry work? And we generally say that, you need at least to spend at least 20% of your time in this work of reaching out, communicating, on your stewardship, on your building up the relationships, and so that it's effective. So if we're looking at 20% of your time, that really equates to about 1 day a week. So if you're looking at your week, and you need to build into your budget, into your time, into your planning, at least the equivalent of 1 day a week to spend on that communication time, on that building those relationships, on reaching out, on making those phone calls, on making those handwritten notes to your on your acknowledgments, and those kind of things. Of course, when we focus on the ministry, we're always talking about, you're reaching your students and professionals, Chinese students and professionals, with the gospel, which is really your ministry mission and vision. So that obviously is going to be the main thing, the focus of your time. But you also need to, in order to accomplish that and meet your needs, you're going to have to be planning to spend at least that 20 to 25% of your time in the stewardship, what we would call the stewardship areas, communicating, building relationships, and fundraising. And then we also, oftentimes we get so busy with our ministry work, especially pastors and people in ministry and people that are doing outreach and evangelism, that they, need to think about, well, how much time am I spending with my family and personal time for reflecting, for reading, for Bible study, for praying. So all of those things have to be worked in your time management. Again, this is something that we could spend an awful lot of time, but again, just some key reminders about balancing your time. And then as we talk about the progressive personal goals, these are some other things that we want to take a look at as we're evaluating, well, how much funds do we really need to raise to make an impact? Well, usually in these types of personal support, deputation, if you want to call it that, we have a first level goal. How much do we need to actually get started? What's our baseline goal to get started in ministry? And then once you get started in ministry, reality sets in and you say, well, I didn't account for this. I didn't account for that expense. I didn't account for this expense. So you need to go to the next level of your goal and really include all of those things that you learned along the way that you really need to be able to make ends meet, cover all of your expenses, not only your personal expenses, but your ministry expenses, as Ron had illustrated with the budget sheet early on in this presentation. And then the return on investment analysis is another important aspect of this whole process. if you have all of your expenses and all of your ministry expenses, as well as the overhead costs that it takes for the ministry to for Ambassadors for Christ ministry to support you on the field, we want to be able to make sure that you're raising enough money to cover all of those areas as well. So that when we say return on investment analysis, is really making sure that you're adding up all of those expenses, all of the overhead expenses, and making sure that that amount is covered, so that you're not in a deficit or in need of being additional support that come from the ministry when you're actually out there being personal supported. Now, the ministry is going to, Ambassadors for Christ Ministry is going to support you with materials and training sessions like the one we're doing now, and the ones that you've been involved in over this last few days. But as far as financially concerned, the ministry itself, has to raise money to keep the ministry going, so that we want to make sure that those that are out there with personal support are reaching all of the funds that, raising all of the funds that they need. And we need to consider all of these aspects of the costs as we're taking a look at our overall fundraising goal. So Ron, I'll turn it back to you for the next segment.
So where do you start and what are you going to do? Well, you need some targets here. So here's what we would suggest that you could do in your next 100 days to make a tremendous difference in your support. So first of all, it's asking God to manage your schedule. Yeah, I love these verses in Proverbs. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. We make plans, but the Lord orchestrates our steps. So this is all about a spiritual journey here, asking God to open the right doors, help him to lead you to the right people, and ask him for the right results. And the sooner you start sowing, the faster you start reaping. If you don't know someone, you got to get to know them first. You just can't ask, like we were talking, you can't ask them on the very first meeting to support you. You need to get to know them a little bit. And it takes a little time for people to make a decision. Now, it can go quickly, and you might be able to ask on the very first meeting, but I would say don't skip the steps. Make sure you're building trust and solid relationships, and solid relationships take longer to establish. So get at it, start going. So let's say I have a list of 50 people. I want to develop a solicitation plan for each donor. So that means I'm going to send them a letter, call them, I'm going to go see them. I'm going to cluster my donors. Maybe you say, well, I don't know, I've got some donors in California, I got some donors in Maine. It's like, okay, well, let's just make sure that when you go to Maine, you're going to reach all of the donors all at once, or you're going to, and that doesn't have to be across the country like that. It could be across town. But I mean, you need a plan for each donor. I want to rate each donor. And so what that means is, does this person have the time, the interest, the ability, the link? Can I ask them for $100? Can I ask them $250? What should I ask for? And then after I rate them, I'm going to ask them for a specific amount. So it's like, I would say, as I looked at that scale of gifts that we talked about already, I'd say, Ron, I might say, where do you see yourself fitting in? Or I might say, Ron, would you be one of my lead supporters at $250 a month? Would you consider doing that? Would you prayerfully consider doing that? So here's a pretty aggressive goal. So dreams don't work unless you do, right? I mean, we all want to be 100%, but it takes work, and it takes an intentional plan. It takes follow through. It takes focus. So here's, if you don't have any support at all, it's a full-time job to raise your support. And a full-time job in fundraising means I'm going to make 40 phone calls every day. And these phone calls are to say thank you, to share a need, to inform, to update, and to set personal appointments. 40 phone calls a day. Well, that sounds crazy, but if you were a brand new person selling stocks, for some brokerage house, you'd be making 40 calls a day. If you were a brand new person selling insurance, you'd be making 40 calls a day. And the whole goal is to have 5 phone conversations. So I'm making 40 phone calls attempted. Now, I might not get, I'm hoping I get 5 because of, you know, voicemail, whatever. It's hard to catch people. I'm hoping I get 5 conversations. And I'm hoping I have 5 personal visits. So I've set up a coffee or a breakfast, or love to come to your house, or can we set up this home gathering? This is the kind of activity that you need to fill out your pipeline to get to the point where somebody's going to say yes. So you got to begin with the end in mind. How many new leads do you need to add to your prospect list? So you need to schedule enough qualifying, proposal, and closing meetings to reach your goal. If you only have 1 meeting a week, then you only have 1 chance a week. If you got 5 meetings a week, you got 5 chances. So you got to just add to your pipeline and start with activity. So focus on the main thing. Now, if you're already in campus ministry, you got a lot of main things going on. You got evangelism, discipleship, you've got things going on. And so this number maybe not apply to you. If you're starting out right now, you need to raise 100% of personal support. It is the main thing to get you to the field. So I like Dan's 20% a week, 1 day a week. I think that's great. Adjust your numbers down, but certainly you got to focus to do this. This doesn't just happen. You got to focus on it. Control your calendar and don't let your calendar control you. So you need to look at your calendar and schedule blocks. Say, okay, on Tuesday afternoon, I'm making 20 calls. And Thursday morning, I'm following up with whatever. But stick to your schedule. Stick to your schedule. And, you know, it's just work. It's just work. I love this. You know, for all of us, meetings are a blessing, right? Yeah, I hear you laughing. Meetings are hard work. Peter Drucker said, we can work or we can meet, but we can't do both. Well, you know, that's being a little bit facetious here. But I love the fact that sometimes we're in lots of meetings and it's a drain on my time. It's probably a good drain, but still a drain on my time. Not all meetings are productive. I love this from Nehemiah 6. Sanballat and Geshem told Nehemiah, come, let us meet together in one of the villages. But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messengers to them with this reply, I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should I stop while I leave it and go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. My reason for sharing this is that I think you just need focus. Focus to fundraise requires you might have to say no to a few meetings. Maybe those are good meetings. Maybe you don't need to be in that meeting. Maybe you need to focus on fundraising. So you just got to manage your time. Sometimes down deep inside, we're scared. And I want to tell you that fundraising is similar to evangelism. All we are asked to do is to share the story in evangelism. God is the one who prompts the person to respond. Only what we're asking you to do in fundraising is to share your story and ask them. And God is the one who prompts them to say, hey, I want to support that person. It's not about you. But sometimes they make it about us. It's about God and his work and your part in his work. Getting back to the home gathering we talked about, asking your key donor to invite their friends to come in. I did this for another one of my missionary families, Dave and Laura Seaton. They're from Niger. And I knew Dave, and Dave shared with me a couple of years ago. He says, you know, my personal support is at 80%. I got to get it back or I can't go back to the field. This is a veteran missionary. I says, well, hey, Dave, I'll host something in my home. And why don't you, Laura, and come and share your story, and let's make some friends. So we did. And so I invited 20 people from my Sunday school class over to my house, and we had coffee and pie, and Dave and Laura shared their need and shared the mission, and people loved it. It was great. And out of that little gathering, Dave was able to bump back up to 100% support. It works. It works. Now, here's what Dan had talked about. The God Ask is an incredible resource. Steve is incredible. He has so many great insights, and you need to get a hold of this book. In this book, it's going to have resources. In fact, you don't need to buy the book to go get these resources. You can go get this resource at the God Ask Extras. It's the monthly budget I told you about. It's a support raising action plan. It's tracking your appointments, accountability sheet, an accountability covenant, giving templates, name storming template. It's really great stuff. I included some in the PowerPoint. So support raising plan, the action plan. So you can't see it really well. Basically, he says, hey, I got to raise $2,500 a month, $4,200 in cash. I'm doing it in phases here, and because I need to raise a monthly budget at $8,650, and I'm now at $1,000. So I've got some work to do, and so I've got some targets. So this is his little plan. So I'm going to finish my prayer and planning. I'm going to send out my first letter. I'm going to get some appointments. I'm going to appeal to my home church. I'm going to send out a newsletter. I'm going to appeal to 3 major donors. This is his plan, and this is how he's marketed out. This is how he's going to raise his money. Then I'm going to send another newsletter. I'm going to take another trip. I'm going to do some home desserts that I just told you about. I'm going to do another trip. I'm going to, and eventually I'm going to, through all these efforts, I'm going to win. And in my ministry letter, I'm going to have some themes about what I want to share. Like Allison had themes in her e-newsletter. I'm going to have the same kind of themes. This is tracking your support appointments and support commitments. So Gordon and Jill, I asked them for 250 face to face, and they gave me 200. So I asked for 250. They gave me 200. I sent a thank you. I'm gonna give them a gift. Again, same kind of thing. So, and this is for their monthly support. This is for special gifts. Here's a $5,000 gift, and go by and pick it up. It's just a little tracking device. I think it's really helpful. So you need to set realistic goals, because it's so easy to get discouraged, because we kind of get into, I can't do this, but you can do this. You just need to set some goals about the amount of time you're willing to invest, able to invest. How many calls can you make? How many people can you ask for appointment? How many appointments can you get? How many new ministry partners can you find? What's your monthly new support? How many new annual or special gifts? How many referrals? That's a great little goal. How many numbers of hours spent on fundraising? A lot of it just comes down to putting out a plan and implementing it. It's all about follow through.
Ron?
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Before we go to accountability, I just want to make a couple additional comments on Steve's book and what's in there. First of all, we know that there are several organizations that recommend this book and use it for their deputation for their missionaries or ministry workers that are coming on board. And so, we really recommend this book to you very highly, not only for the resources that Ron's pointed out, but for all the other information that it has. And you will find that it complements the books that we're going to provide you from Timothy Group very well. I mean, a lot of the comments that he makes in his book match up with Pat McLaughlin's Major Donor Game Plan and the 6 R's. And also a number of items that Ron mentions in his book, Ask for a Fish, are also complemented and encouraged there in this book, The God Asks. So we would really encourage you to do that. I mean, for example, 3 times in the book, The God Asks, he compares fundraising to evangelism. Ron does that in his book as well. And if you're already out there, if that's your ministry mission, you're reaching people for Christ, you're doing evangelism, there are so many, and we could do a whole nother training session on this as well. There are so many comparisons to the work of building relationships, reaching out and communicating to when you're trying to reach a person for Christ, setting the example. As the only additional item that's in the fundraising area is those items that we shared with you about the ask. So all the other items can be compared, and even in evangelism, there's that point when where you're going to ask, are you willing to accept the Lord as your personal Savior? So a lot of comparisons there. We would encourage you. And one final thing from the book, The God Ask, on page 311, interestingly enough, he has a section on there on raising funds. He has a whole section on raising funds from different cultures, but on page 311, it's raising funds in the Asian American context. So if you read through that section, you'll find a lot of the issues that are particular to the issues that you're dealing with personally in the Asian American context. And we know there are some cultural issues that you deal with that we may not have addressed here, but some of the things that are in that section of the book may help you as well. And we might be able to address some of those things in the questions that are coming up in just a few minutes. So Ron, continue.
That's really great, Dan. In fact, if you go back to the one spreadsheet that I showed you about the extras, there on that sheet right here, this will take you to this list of resources. You don't have to buy the book. And one of those resources is the resource Dan just mentioned about how do you raise money in the Asian Christian community. So you can just go get that right now. And it's part of the God Ask resource packet, but that would be great. And again, we could, we'll copy this or we'll give you the PowerPoint just so you have these resources available. One other thing that makes support raising an encouraging process instead of a discouraging process is to find an accountability partner. Ecclesiastes, Solomon says, 2 are better than 1, because if one falls down, he has the other one to lift him up. Woe to those who doesn't have anyone who can lift them up. 2 are better than 1. So you need an accountability partner. Somebody who's just going to encourage you and help you with ideas and pray for you and give you feedback and critique your case statement, critique your strategies, and help you climb this mountain. So I want to encourage you, if you don't have one already, try to find one, and it will make a big difference in your successful personal support raising. So we've had some questions along the way, and we really appreciate that. The PowerPoint's probably pretty big. Everybody's asked for it. We are going to we're going to post it on in a share file of ours and give you a link to it so you can download it. So we'll get that out to you. I just scrolling down here through the comments and the questions. Good. Dan, do you see other questions? I don't know that I see other questions right now.
Let's see. Someone said that the file is the info being sent in a Word file. Now this is a PowerPoint file, so we will get the PowerPoint to you, as Ron said, but
We'll make it a PDF too, so if you don't have PowerPoint.
Right, right.
Oh, here's a great question. How soon should we ask to recruit fundraisers? I think once somebody contributes to you and becomes a monthly partner, at that moment, you can ask them to be a fundraiser. Because if you ask them before that, then if they just say, hey, Ron, you need to support this person. And I'll say, do you support them? And they'll say, well, no, I don't. You know, it's just like, it's like a board member. A board member needs to give and then get his friends to give. But if he's not giving, it's a little hollow to ask your friends to support. So I would say you can ask everybody right now who supports you now to host a fundraiser. But you can ask anybody to brainstorm with you. If they're not going to introduce you, that's fine. Have them brainstorm and namestorm. Give me some ideas. But if you want them to introduce you and maybe host a gathering, they need to be a really close friend, and hopefully somebody's already supporting you. I think at the time I supported Dave and Laura, I was not a personal supporter at that point yet. I was a supporter, but not a monthly supporter. I didn't become a monthly supporter till after that gathering in my home. So, you know, I guess I would lean to those who are already supporting me, but I'd lean to those who are my good friends, because it takes a little bit of work and it takes a little bit of effort. And so, you know, you got to have a good friend that's willing to sacrifice for you.
Ron, here's another question. What about privacy of the missionary if we openly share a blog to the public? I know we've had some issues with that for missionaries that are in the 1040 window, et cetera. So
right. I think that's really, you know, very cautious, very good. So I have a friend who's in, where is he? Is he in Uzbekistan? Yeah. Well, so when he writes his letters, he has a code that he writes a letter, and he doesn't mention church, or he doesn't spell it quite the same way to pick it up if they have a search software, or he uses my father or the Father in terms, he doesn't say God, you know. So I mean, I think there are ways to write, but I mean, I know you guys are much more adept to this. I mean, obviously you want to be cautious, but the other thing too is I don't know that I would do a blog. I mean, I said blog, and Allison is in a country that it didn't matter. But if you're in a country it does matter, I would make my communication email. And even my friend in Uzbekistan always says, please do not post this publicly, and please, for the safety of the church and for the safety of you know, the missionary family. Here's another great question. If the church said they do not have a budget to support new missionary, how should we follow up? I would follow up with thank them and say, please consider me in your prayer time. I'd love to continue to send you personal prayer letters and love to have you on our prayer team. I need a prayer team. Now, here's an interesting item. How many churches, how many individuals? Right? In the old days, or in the past, many missionary agencies would say, you need to find 50 churches to support you, and maybe 50 individuals or 20 individuals. And I was a pastor, and missionaries would all the time, we'd love to come present, and our church would support missionaries, and it's a good model. Today, the model is shifting that, let's say you have 100 supporters, 90 of them or 95 of them are individuals, and 5 of them are churches. I don't think that's a bad thing. individuals can make quicker decisions. Individuals can, in fact, we had one of my partner's sons went to Honduras as a seminary prof, and his wife was a doctor. And so they raise primarily most of their support through individual donors, through the means of personal support in people's homes that we've already talked about. They probably had 2 churches and 85 individual supporters. And that's how they did it. And they did it very successfully. So I think, Dan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, thanks, Ron. In the book, The God Ask, there's a whole section on getting support from churches. And Ron did kind of summarize the fact that there'd be probably a limited number of churches and a predominant number of people that are individuals. But keep in mind, individuals are in those churches. So, that's an outreach. And one of the other things that he mentions, and I have personal experience with this at my own home church because we support a lot of missionaries. And when we have someone going out from our own church, they get qualified as a candidate, a missionary candidate, or a ministry candidate, raising their own personal support. Our church starts them out, our missions committee starts them out with the first 20%. And then we set a goal of trying to provide a third or up to 40% of their support from the home church. Why is this important? Because it really makes an impact when you're reaching out and meeting people with individually. You can say that, I have a substantial amount of church support from my own home church. And that really makes an impact on the individuals that you're talking with, that your home church is there supporting you. So I don't know if that situation exactly compares with the number of you and the work that you're doing and where your home churches are. But for those of you who do have a home church here, it would be important that, you do have good support from your home church, and your support starts there. And then the network of churches, obviously, that's connected with your church, are ones that you probably would want to reach out in one way or another to try and add to your support team. So, but again, support from the churches will be a limited number, but again, it should be, as far as the amount is concerned, it should be a good portion of your prayer support and financial support team.
Thanks, Dan. Rose made in the chat that that it's more effective to make authentic relationships with individuals, and I think that we've just confirmed that. I do think the church support is great because that's where I can find individuals, and so maybe I get a chance to go speak, right, and maybe somebody takes me out to lunch afterwards, and maybe that's the person that's going to support me. So maybe that's a way to leverage the church relationships.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ron. In my previous ministry, where I was as vice president for advancement, only about 10% of our gift income came from churches. However, 90% of the individuals that supported us were from those supporting churches. So that just kind of emphasizes Ron's point about the individuals and Paula's point too, about the individuals are the ones that you have to reach out, but the church sometimes provides that platform for reaching those individuals. So keep that in mind.
Right. So Ike made a nice comment here that obviously we know that most of the IFC staff work exclusively with Chinese audiences in partnership with Chinese Christian community. At times we felt we have exhausted our social contacts and advice on intentionally maintaining a large social network as a missionary. That's great. That's great. But the thought is I always have my radar up for new relationships and new opportunities. And so, I'm looking this isn't just a Facebook thing, but Facebook could be a strategy where you're networking that way, where you're working with even LinkedIn. I mean, it's one way to connect with other people. But those are electronic things that can be helpful, can be good. But I'm looking more for personal things, trying to continue to try to network. That's why these gatherings are nice, because perhaps someone in a church or a friend connects you to a different circle of friends, and perhaps they host something in their home, and now all of a sudden I have a new circle that I'm working on. So, Dane, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, large, social contacts, work well in, reaching out to individuals and making up that network. I could already share with me about, the challenges that they have dealing with the limited number of Chinese Christian community churches that they have, and they've really worked hard on that, and they feel that they're kind of those giving from those churches is probably at its maximum. There may be more opportunities, but again, a large social network as a missionary, maintaining that, is again, the goal and objective there is to try to identify, individuals from there that are going to, stand out and be ones that are going to step up and provide an opportunity for you to share, and then hopefully and eventually an opportunity to support.
Good. Oh, interesting. How to maintain social contact during the time of social distancing. Right. Well, again, contact is, it used to be we were meeting people and hugging them, and we can't do that right now. But contact really, again, is personal notes, personal text, personal emails. I mean, these are all really key. I mean, I have my friend from Uzbekistan is back into the States. I don't know that I'll be able to see him, but now that he's in the States, it's easier to call him. I can call him in Uzbekistan, but you can call me. I think it's reaching out. A phone call is incredibly helpful. My mom is 90 years old. She has various she gives her radio programs. She has one radio ministry in Chicago that calls her every time she sends a gift, or even when she's not sending a gift. They will call her, they will talk to her, they will pray with her, they'll ask what's going on in her life. And she told me one day, she says, I've never met Barbara. I just feel like I know her. And she says, it's amazing how you can have a conversation with somebody and feel like, even though they're 2,000 miles away, you feel like you know them. So it's not about necessarily having coffee if we can't, although it seems like, praise God, it seems like we're getting back to that now. But it's more about contacting.
Yeah, during this downtime, unfortunately, we've been unable to, arrange personal visits for the obvious reason, and hopefully that will be able to open up shortly, and probably the latter part of the summer, especially the year end, when giving is at its highest. So, Lord willing, the personal visits will be able to take place then. But we have substituted that, in this interim with FaceTime, with Zoom calls. And again, with the personal contacts on the phone, and so there have been some some repercussions from not being able to visit people individually, but we have tried to use the social media to be able to make those contacts in the interim. And there's another question there, Ron, from
Right.
About the Chinese culture.
Yes, thank you. And certainly we recognize that. And the comment is Chinese churches are not fully supporting the campus ministry in general. That's why, again, the church has many, many different missionary focuses. You know, they're going to, certainly you're one of them, but they have other various foci, you know, of in other churches, it would be water wells in Africa, or a hospital in Kenya, or, you know, and all sorts of things like that. So you're, as you try to go to a church to raise money, you're competing for space, right, on the shelf. That's why talking to individuals makes it much more effective, because if they don't understand what you do with campus ministry, it boils down to evangelism. I mean, everybody understands that part. So evangelism, discipleship, helping them grow in their faith. Yeah, so I appreciate the fact you're trying to help them clarify your mission and strategies. That's really important. And I believe that's, you're on track, because
Ron, and another thing to add there is, Ike or Dr. Boer, you know, may also want to comment on this, but one of the things that AFC is trying to do through the Word Project is really step up the communication on, you know, their the ministry's mission and vision, so that those resources and those communication tools that are going to be online through the new Word Project should be able to be very valuable assistance to the campus ministry team. And so, you know, they've started on that project. It's a long-term project, but, you know, they've already made some good progress there. But some of those resources that are already available should be able to help you in this particular area and give you more help as they continue to grow with those resources, and to help you reach out and, again, inspire interest in general, as you've noted there.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. This is Yo Chang speaking.
Yes.
Thank you for your wonderful sharing. And also I asked Reverend Zhao Yang for him to also come up with their campus ministry case statement to complement Word Project statement, our AFC overall general case statement, and he's working on that. And I'm pretty sure he will have that case statement ready, and it will help also overall and helping materialize our campus ministry in the overarching goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boer. I know we had talked about that, and about the campus ministry developing their own. When I met with Chao Yang, we talked about them developing a personal case statement, or a case statement for the campus ministry program. So that should be another tool that's being developed to help the campus ministry staff. Thank you for that reminder.
Hi, Dan. This is Ike. I actually have a question for Zhao Yang. How are we doing on time? Do we still have time for this?
Yeah, we still have 25 minutes.
Just a question for you. You know, eventually I want to ask everyone, staff, this question. I think Zhuan, in his earlier comment, mentioned, you know, some of the help from the AFC organization, right? That could potentially be a tool for individual staff to go about asking for support. You know, I think about the model for some typical franchise business, right? The Chick-fil-A Atlanta headquarters, they dump money to do the TV commercials, internet broadcasting, so that the individual franchisees receive the benefits, right? Is there anything you would suggest, like AFC HQ, to do? You know, specifically kind of a communication or church campaigns that can benefit our individual staff?
I think the things that you've already worked on in developing the overall case statements are important, because it gives you a resource to supplement, to explain AFC to a donor. You know, think about it from a donor's perspective. If they've never even heard of you, you got to tell them and explain to them who you are, what you do, how you do it. And so all of the things that you are providing as a ministry-wide explanation for the donor is incredibly helpful, and it supports your team in the field. Then their little personal case statement kind of plugs in and makes more sense to a donor. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, if we got to the point of maybe we could do a template for everybody in their own personal case statement, so they didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Maybe we could just have little block sections to say, okay, here's your testimony, here's your city, here's what you're doing, but here's what we're doing. And maybe you develop a plug and play case statement that is, could be adapted to each campus minister, so they don't have to do the same thing from start to finish. Maybe it's just like a template.
Yeah, I have a question too. Today we mostly talk about the personal fundraise for personal support, right? Do you have any suggestions for our total campus ministry, to raise support for campus ministry? Is any suggestions or recommendations you have?
Well, sure, but it's really gets back to, it's the same process. The process is for the whole campus ministry. What's the budget? What are your vision? What's the goal? What's your results? So if you told me, hey, we had 50 campus students trust Christ last year, that's great. We need to hear that as a donor. And so what do you need? You need $150,000. Same process. So it's a process of identifying donors, research, cultivating a relationship, and requesting. So it's the same process where now the case statement is more of region or campus ministry region. And so as a personal supporter, I could go to my support base and say, thank you for supporting me. I want you to know what we're doing campus-wide. Because some of your people who support you personally maybe have the capacity to support more. But as a personal supporter, my budget is what? $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 for me, my budget. Your budget might be $250,000. So a donor is not going to give me $50,000 because a major donor will give you 10% about what the goal is. So if my budget is $100,000 personally, major donor will probably give me 10% max. So they're not going to give me $50,000, but they might give you $25,000 as a campus ministry-wide because your budget's $250,000. Kind of what I told you about the Navigator situation is the same kind of thing. Navigators had personal support, city support, and regional support. And so we went to a donor to say, please continue helping us with personal supporters and city supporters, $150,000. But we got this regional impact for $800,000, $900,000. Would you consider doing that? And the guy did. So it's a both and. So it's not, you're not competing against each other. Although everybody feels like, oh, don't take my donor. Your donor has a lot more capacity than you give them credit for. The $100 they're giving you a month is not their last $100. And so why not have them support the campus ministry that supports you as well and makes your work better? So it's the same kind of donor. It's just lifting them and causing them to see a better vision, a bigger vision for your work.
And Chao Yang, when we talked about the case statement for the campus ministry in general that you're working on, one of the things that we talked about including in there, and your folks should know, is that, well, what are the financial needs overall for the campus ministry in addition to those individuals that are working? So that should be in that case statement, number one. And number two, as Ron said, there are individuals that they like supporting operations, and there's others that like supporting just projects. They don't necessarily like to support monthly, or they like to support both. And so, and we talked about meeting with, the individuals, the campus ministry staff, meeting with their individuals and finding out, well, what is their real need to give? And as you talk with them and they share their story, you may identify, your campus staff ministry people will identify, well, here's someone that may be able to provide a one-time gift for the campus ministry, for the project, for the need. And they have the campus ministry case statement there, and they could say, we're so grateful for your giving, monthly to me. And so here is a campus ministry case statement, and we also have a need there for the funds for campus ministry in general. And this is what that money supports. So you have both of those tools available, like I said, and that would be very helpful to your individuals. You're not going to send out, an appeal to all of the supporters that's supporting all of your staff people, because, that would be kind of difficult, and it would be a conflict. But again, some of your, especially your full-time campus staff ministry, may identify, a limited number of people that are capable and willing to provide an additional one-time gift for the campus ministry. And therefore, if you have a $250,000 budget for 1 year for the campus ministry, that individual may be able to provide a one-time gift to help you with that. So, absolutely.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Any more questions? Well, thank you, Ron and Dan, for a very insightful presentation. Great help to us. The 6 R's really very clear.
Good. Very good.
Address the concerns we just had before this session. We're talking about, all these concerns. Now,
I got one more. I got the 4
Okay,
C's.
we got one more question here. Ron, you have a look?
Yeah, I got, let's see. I think did we answer all the questions? I think the other one is just a comment for the leadership staff there. I got one more slide here. So we did the 4 R's. Now here's the 4 C's. And here it is.
Okay.
See the people, see the people, see the people, and see what God will do. It's hokey, but you got to remember it. It's all about relationships. And so the more you meet people, you say, okay, we got just a cluster of people. Okay, well, work that cluster and try to expand beyond the cluster, because even your campus people have friends that are not necessarily Chinese friends, and maybe their friends are Christians, and maybe you can find other connections, and God will open doors for you. And you just need to ask the Holy Spirit to lead your steps, and He will.
Finally, Ike, do you have anything else to suggest to our staff or recommendations?
This is the Ike. I'd highly recommend our staff to use this time to reach out to your supporters. Because almost everyone's working from home still right now, it's the best time to initiate phone calls, to schedule appointments, face-to-face via online link. I could not stress how important it is to do that. I don't know if you had a chance to talk about some of the macro trends that's gonna impact us negatively. Speaking for campus ministry, my estimate for the incoming fall students from China are gonna drop 2/3. In what way or another, our work, because of shrinking of the scope, will be perceived as less significant by the church and perhaps even by some of the supporters. If we do not proactively to share a vision, share our slightly transitioned goals and strategies, will be on the kind of receiving end of their decisions later on. So I just want to once again stress that communicate, over communicate with your donors.
Ike, thank you for that reminder. It brought something to mind, and Ron may also want to comment on this as we close. But we've been doing these Zoom panel forums with the Timothy group, and a number of the panelists have been sharing that they've been doing exactly what Ike had suggested, and that we've been suggesting to our clients, and that's to take this time to reach out to individuals, to see how they're doing, especially your key donors, see how they're doing, pray with them, and not necessarily making an ask, but keeping up that communication and praying with them. And in a number of situations, people have reflected back and say, well, how can we help you in this difficult time? And some significant gifts have come in. So, but the goal and objective, as Ike shared so effectively, is take this time now while people are home. That's another thing. Very busy people usually have a very hard time reaching them, and but now they are at home, and there have been a lot more success in reaching out to people and being able to make those contacts.
Hey, Dan and Ron, this is Yo-Chen again. Thank you again for your wonderful, resourceful comments. I was wondering, I know on your website, your Unity's website, you have lots of video resources.
Yes.
Could you somehow post it on the PPT or include in the PPT so that our staff can later on get onto your website and take advantage of those resources that you have produced?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is we'll put it on a share file and email it to you so they have it. And then you can just download the link.
Right, and also from time to time, you also send out the panel discussion invitation link. If those are beneficial to our campus staff, maybe you can send it to Zhao Yang, and Zhao Yang can post it to our campus staff, that they can, if they have time, they can join and learn from you too.
Well, that'd be great. Sure.
Thank you.
But how many people
I have
do you
sent
take,
that
actually?
link to several people on at AFC, so they can forward that on to the campus ministry staff, and they're welcome to register and join. Actually, we have one coming up on Wednesday, and so it's not too late to register, and the registration is free. So if you do want to register for that and you can't join us on Wednesday at 1 p.m., then if you do register, then we can send you a follow-up so that you can review the recorded Zoom meeting, at a time of your convenience. Ron, you have anything to add to that?
No, but certainly we want to give you all the resources we can. So.
Thank you, Ron. But we have about over 100 staff. You don't mind if we, have a large number of people register?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I think I forget what the limit is, but it's probably 500. The limit is, and there's plenty of room, plenty of seats available.
Yeah.
Since you're all sitting in your own house, we couldn't get you all in our office. But we can get them in your house.
And also thank Ron and Dan for sending us the book for our staff. So we'll get these books to our staff maybe later this week.
Very good. Thank you, Chow.
Okay, any more questions? If not, can I ask Dr. Ball to close this session for us with a prayer?
Sure, let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for this time. And like Ron said, you're asking us to find where God hides those money. And not only through fundraising, but through fundraising, this is literally a time to share our vision and passion, because Lord, you called us to be at this point of time to share the peace of Christ, the gospel into this broken world. For many students are in this transition period where they have no idea what their future looks like. But Lord, we are assured of, through our faith in Jesus, for your redemptive work. Lord, I thank for this particular time that you called our campus staff in this very critical juncture in the history, that with our decision, our ministry will have internal impact on the next generation. So Lord, I ask you for your continued providence, guidance, protection on our staff and on those donor relationships as we continue to explore, to cultivate, to develop, and eventually will materialize for your kingdom's sake. We thank you for the training, the insight that Ron and Dan has provided. We pray for the Timothy Group, continue to bring these useful resources to many, many people at the critical time like this. And we thank you for their service. And I pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thanks so much for the opportunity to help you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron.
Ron and Dan and everybody. Dr. Bo. Okay. How many still remain here?
43.
43.
43.
Okay. Basically, our online retreat is closed. So we still have 5 minutes to talk in Chinese. 大家觉得这个培训有收获吗？
有收获。
这六个啊，真是非常清楚的呀！你看，我们刚开始之前还是说，我记得豆妹就问我们到哪边去找这个donor， 你要做 research， 通过各种关系找到 research， 找到那个可能的，他也可以的，有这个负担，他也可以那个支持的人。
Including knowledge of humans, culture, and society, and the use of this stock of knowledge to devise new applications. Should I keep going?
刚刚是谁在放啊？哇，那谢谢我们的同工们，我们的团队。那接下来可能我们会整理一下这次的退休的这些材料文件，然后大家可能就可以，包括今天这个培训的录音，大家可以看看。星期三确实他们经常有这种怎么筹款的这种讲座的，我觉得是蛮有帮助的。这方面讲老实话，美国人做的真是好，他们筹款真是做的很棒的，这个他们很有办法，也很到位的，我们应该学习这个。好啊，看看大家有没有其他的，你们打开来有没有其他愿意有领受的，有或者问题的。
大家可以自行unmute啊，我已经把它打开了。
对呀，丽亚还在吗？丽亚不在了吧？
在。
你跟我们最后那几个电视到底的人拍几个照片好吗？
好的。
大家镜头没有开
啊，马上过来。我换一个地方。现在有点乱。好，那我现在开始拍啊，大家把镜头打开，除了我哈。
好。
好，1、2、3。哦，不对，我要把那个 chat 关掉，重新来哈。好，1、2、3 ，smile。有一个 Chris 没有打开哎，再来一次啊。然后还有第二个 page， 1、2 ，Chris 他会打开吗？他不打开。 OK whatever OK 1、2、3，好，下一张，第2页的，有的人也在第1页，在第2页哈，你很 popular Lydia Olivia 啊，实惠没
实惠
OK
没有看
1、2、3，好的
Got it
Got it 好，现在就送出来。
那个要请那个 Edward 和 Rosa 跟我们分享一下，你们怎么筹那么多款在剑桥买那么贵的房子？
其实真的是神职来的 miracle， 上帝的恩典。当然刚才我也提过了，李牧师过去那么多年，从我们一开始踏进使者的大门开始到今天，李牧师一直都给我们很多的鼓励啊，帮助我们。很多时候信心软弱，真的信心软弱，我们看见就是不可能的。但是他给我们很好的一个信心鼓励，这个是神的神迹。Rosa 可以有一些小小的分享。
最后是一起是多少钱来着？那个地方？
总共现在我们花了差不多75万吧，英镑。
75万英镑，
连那个手续费，
手续费，对，差不多100万美金。
手续应该是那个
差不多100万美金，
那得了
，100万美金
，100万美金。
因为又付那个理验费，很贵的，英国的那个
全付了，全付了。当然当中有一些的有
包括装修的费用，
对，装修都很好的，
对，
四星级，跟使者的总部的差不多，按照教牧师的规格来做标准的。所以我们希望哦，这个校园中心剑桥校园中心是使者的总部的同工可以过来连在一块。
也许我可以分享一下哦，其实那个跟这个氛围性这方面呢，我觉得我们华人教会跟那个 local church， 无论英国也好，美国也好，其实跟白人呢是很不一样的。我华人教会的确是有他们的看事情处事方式是很不一样哦。然后我们华人跟那个白人呢也是不一样的。你想想，如果我就举一个例哦，如果我们做到我们的华人的一个主场里面哦，跟他讲20块美金、100块美金，你要支持多少？我想这个是按我在华人教会这么久的一个经验哦，这个是有点尴尬哦，不是那么容易。那么我就讲一讲，就是说我们就是其实是很感恩的，就是我们的确是在很多教会我们有服侍。有服侍过哦，过去我们一直还没做宣教士的时候，就是我们平信徒的时候，就已经在教会里边有很多的参与哦，然后就是我觉得是很重要的，就是我们很清楚的跟大家分享我们的那个意向无论我们回去不同的教会里面分享的时候呢，我们真是有故事给他们看，给他们听的，这个是很重要的。我们要把我们的工作呢，就不是一个工作，我们的宣教事工是一个有血有肉的。所以当我们跟人家分享我们的时候呢，我们实际的那个做出那个工作的那个神的介入，不单是介入那个我们这个事工里边呢是对象的生命，也介入在我们的生命里边。我想我们就是每一次去就是我们那个校园事工那个校园中心啊，我们就是经常就是当我们去筹款，我们也经历很低谷，也经历到好像就是说觉得很困难没办法筹得到。但我觉得当然这个是神的恩典神职这个是很重要。但是讲我们的策略呢，我们就是说我们都是像是认识我们的。或是刚才那个专家也说得很对，我们会找一个就是认识我们的做中介，他认识很多人，也有这样的但是当我们在当中的时候，当我们分享我们的工作的时候，我觉得最重要的是一定要把我们的召命，我们在神里边领受的这一个使命， 就很清楚讲出来。然后呢，也是把我们工作的那个果效，就是那种动人的故事，你不能讲很多，你讲1个2个最动人的。我觉得是这个就是我们这个筹款的这个策略是这样。
很多的祷告也是支持我们。
对，
感谢主，荣耀归给
要讲故事，对，
荣耀归给上帝。
讲得很对啊，要讲故事。而且今天他还讲到有一点，你不但要讲自己的故事，你还听他讲他的故事。
对，
这个也很有意思。
交流，是，对。
你看，感谢主啊！不过这个筹款总是信心功课，没有办法，都是靠神呀。自己你怎么做，还就是神在做呀。
我想问一下，那 Edward 和 Rosa， 我每次听 Rosa 分享都觉得特别有激励，能有你们的联系方式吗？
有啊，我们就在那个群里面啊。
你们也有微信？
他们俩都在群里呀。
在群啊，微信啊 ，WhatsApp 都有 ，Link 也有，什么都有，都在里面。
对呀，
对。
就是微信的，你们的名字是什么
？Edward 的，邝维新。
就是 Edward。
对 ，Edward Rosa， 有啊，在喜姐的群那个网页，对，欢迎你们，
每次听你们分享很激励。
呀，好啊，阿奔。最后有没有其他的我们要注意的？就结束了，就回家了吗？还是还有其他要注意的？
没了，今天就是我们的聚会就到此结束了。
我们就在家里了嘛，不用回了。
跟大家打招呼
对，大家可以打个招呼，打个招呼。
田牧师去年我们也去加州他接待过我们还有王牧师王有份牧师你的教会的经验我印象很深刻。
我要谢谢 Edward 的 Rosa， 你接待我，感谢。
不敢了，不是那个是我们剑桥是使者的分部嘛，你们都过来，我们连成一条线哦。真的是
你们来看我们，我也很开心的。你们人很强嘛，过来，我们是没有那么。
你们做这个施工每天有动力啊，那我在这做也是每天都兴奋得不得了。好，谢谢大家了，那我们就先下去吧。
谢谢你们那个侍奉的同工。
上帝赐福，拜拜。
上帝赐福，
谢谢你们，
拜拜。
阿 Ben 保重，
谢谢阿
Ben， 辛苦了 Ben，Thank you so much。
明年谢谢大家，拜拜。
是再见，你不是
再见，你不是。
好嘞，拜拜。我们去英国去效力。
还有日本。
还有日本。
要这个 host 的把我关了才能走，对不对啊？
那我直接关掉了，祝大家最后。
牧师辛苦了
对。
没有人还没讲完。
可以关掉。
你要最后一个关。
那我就关了啊，还是有的还要再交流，要不我就关了。
好，谢谢你啊
，Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you.
拜拜，君安。
谢谢。